So, welcome to the In Vivo Project podcast, where we talk about real world, real life scenarios that encourage men to embrace vulnerability so they can live life to the fullest. My name's Eric Payton. I'm your host, and today I'm joined by Joshua Aubrey. Joshua is a husband, father, medic, coach, entrepreneur, and it just so happens is a great friend of mine. Josh, welcome to the podcast.
I'm so glad to be here. Let's get this show going.
Yeah, man, we're glad to have you, man. We were talking earlier and we've known each other for about 20 years. There was a little bit of a debate. I feel like I met you right before you joined the military back in 2001.
Yep.
Because I had just moved back to Tyler at that time, and I think you were working out at the gym a
Yep.
little bit before you actually went off to the military. But either way, man, it's been a journey for us being friends, man, and
Yeah.
it's an honor to have you on the podcast, and I'm excited to just kind of jump in and just kind of talk about what's been going on with you for the last 20 years and how that's led to you sitting
Here
here
across from you.
yeah, across from me, doing this podcast. So talk just a little bit about what it was like when you decided to join the military and what prompted you to do that.
All right. What it was like. I was 21 years old, trying to find my way. I had worked in the oil field for my grandfather, his business. I worked for my parents at their family business. They owned a plant farm in New Summerfield, Texas. And that's like, Plant City during that time, during the late 90s.
Yeah.
And just I couldn't find my way. I tried college a little bit, and I remember going to have lunch with my parents at a Luby's cafeteria in Tyler,
Yeah.
and we got in this huge argument about my life and where I'm headed. And one thing that my stepdad said to me that stuck out, he's like, if you don't make changes in your life, you're gonna just always be stuck in that blue Dodge Ram making the loop in Jacksonville. And when he said that, that really, it struck me. It was something that has stuck with me since, but I just was thinking about that again.
Yeah.
And so we got into argument about the direction I was going. And I kind of was like, okay, well, I'll show y'all. And I happened to be friends with the recruiter at the time that I'd met at Premier. And I was like, well, I'll just go see Gino and talk to him about the Navy. And I pretty much signed up right after that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had a similar experience where I graduated, tried college for a little while. It was a complete disaster. I was pretty much aimless, and I had a good friend of mine who was joining the Marine Corps. So I just kind of had a similar experience where I was like, you know what? I don't know exactly what I'm doing right now, but joining the military seemed like a good idea. And
Right.
looking back in it in retrospect, it really did shape a lot of even my current life now, really just to show that, and I think a lot of guys are missing this. Again, the reason why I wanted to start this podcast and continue working with guys is I think there's a lot of guys out there that don't know exactly what they want to do and they're
Mhm.
lacking that direction and lacking that mentorship. And not everybody has to join the military
Yeah, to find their way.
to find their way. But I think, for me, some of the biggest lessons were being able to start something, stick with it,
Yeah.
the camaraderie you find with being with a group of guys with the same kind of core mission, whatever that may be. So talk a little bit. So you decided to join the military
Yeah.
and talk about what you decided to do with your military career.
All right. So when I joined, and that's good that you hit on that about finding direction and sticking, finding something to stick with. That was my big thing is like, I had worked in the oil field. My grandfather fired me because I was late because I had a problem with being on time. And granted, it was like an hour and a half drive, and I'm 21 years old. Like
Sure.
it wasn't working. Right.
Yeah.
But I knew in me that I've got to get into something that I can't I can't get out of. And I knew going into the military, like when you're in there, like you can't get out. I mean, I'm sure there's ways people
Yeah.
get out, but I'm not
Right.
that kind of person. If I'm getting
Yeah.
into that, I know there's no turning back.
Yeah. It gives you that discipline of
Yeah.
sticking with something, right?
And
Yeah.
that was, there's so many things that from the military that shaped who I am today that are always helpful to go back and kind of revisit again
Yeah.
because they can help you even find your direction again, you know, no matter where you are, in your age. but yeah, so when I joined, man, the job that they offered me was a hospital corpsman. And I remember being at MEPS, and after I did my ASVAB, they're like, "Okay, here's the job we have for you." And the recruiter was like, "Are you afraid of blood and guts?" And I was like, "I don't think so." And he's like, "Well, here's a job you could be doing." And so you get your orders, and it shows you everything that a hospital corpsman does, and what you could be doing. And I was like, "All right, cool. This is what I'm going to do." And so I went to boot camp. This was 2000. So I signed up actually right before 9/11.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that, which
Yeah.
is just wild. I
Yeah.
was
It's
thinking
crazy.
about that.
Yeah. So I remember signing up, like it was Labor Day weekend. It was right after Labor Day weekend. I signed up like the following Tuesday after that.
Mhm.
And then, 9/11 happened, and my parents, they were just freaked out, probably distraught because they're like, okay. And I knew that too, like, oh, we're going to war.
Yeah.
And so it changes your whole perspective of going into the military, and especially a job as a corpsman. Because, if you go with the Marines, there's a big chance you're going to go,
You're gonna be on
you're,
the front
yeah, you're going to be on the
lines.
front lines.
Yeah.
So, but, I went in, went to boot camp, Great Lakes, went to A school right across the street. So I spent almost a year in Chicago or Waukegan,
Mhm.
Illinois. I think it's where it is.
Yeah.
Then got sent out to the fleet, worked at a naval hospital for 3 years, and then went with the Marines after that.
Yeah. And so we talked a little bit about that camaraderie you had the minute you said you walked in to
Yeah,
meet the group of guys that you were going to be assigned to. Talk about that a little
right.
bit.
So, my last year, as active duty, I was finishing up a year in Japan. So I had 1 year orders to Japan. So I was with Third Marine Division. So got experience being with the Marines. Um, but I knew in me, I was like, I want to be a part of the fight. I didn't want to just say I served during wartime. I was like, I want to be a part of this. So I got orders to First Marine Division. Um, and when I checked into First Marine Division, I found the unit that was getting deployed. And when I got with those Marines, when we went to 29 Palms, getting our pre-deployment uh, training,
Yeah.
once I got with Second Platoon, man, we bonded, and it was
Yeah.
the rest is history.
Yeah. Yeah, and the reason why I bring that up because one of the reasons why I want you to be a part of the In Vivo project is because of those experiences
Right.
of having those bonds, and I think today men need that more than ever,
Yeah.
and a lot of people have never experienced that bond
Right.
with being with a group of guys like that, and I think that's probably the biggest thing that guys need is to be able to have that bond. So
Yeah.
I just want to honor you for stepping forward not only in that wartime situation but even stepping forward today and saying, hey, yeah, I'm interested in being a part of the In Vivo project, man, because I do look at where we're at right now. It is I feel like it's almost like a wartime
Oh yeah.
situation that we're in
Absolutely.
right now with mental health,
Yeah.
you
Totally.
know so thank you for that.
Yeah, man. It was an honor of mine, man. I if I could do it again and relive that time, there's part of me that would do that.
Yeah.
Especially with those group of guys. But yeah, it was an honor to serve, and you know, I'm one of many that has done it. You know what I'm saying? But
Mhm.
yeah, it's just an honor and privilege to be a part of this too. It's something that I probably have been looking for, to get into, but didn't know it, and just how
Yeah.
it's kind of opened up with where we're headed. I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And so talk a little bit about your journey with mental health and what that's been like for you.
Okay. Well, um, on my way up the elevator, I was thinking about that question about my journey through mental health, and the analogy is I feel like I'm a big rock,
Mhm.
trying to.
Which you are kind of a big
I'm kind
guy.
of a big. I'm kind of a big guy, a little
Yeah.
big guy. I got some
Yeah.
broad shoulders, a
Yeah.
wide back.
Yeah.
What is it? I'm as tall as I am wide.
Right.
I'm pretty wide, so that's
Like a
pretty or
yeah.
short, whatever you say.
Yeah.
Anyways, but yeah, so I kind of equate my journey to being a rock, being pushed up a hill, and so any progress is progress.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, my journey with mental health has been it really I'd say kicked off around 2017. I started noticing that I started getting depressed,
Mhm.
and having these ups and downs that were just all over the place. And then, started on an antidepressant. It helped some. The next following year, my best friend, whose name was Jeremy Eads, he was a fellow corpsman. He overdosed and passed away. And I think that was kind of the icing on the cake. And from that moment, October 2018, I've been on this, roller coaster of meds and therapy and treatments and all kinds of things, and made a lot of progress. But it's just, it's literally has been a journey for the past 8 years.
Yeah. And we kind of talked about that, with the analogy of the rock and just edging your way up the hill, because there really is, for anybody listening out there, I would just say, hey, there is no final end destination. And I think that keeps a lot of people stuck. And I think it keeps them in that cycle of maybe thinking that they're never going to get better, because they think there's going to be this end destination where you don't have depression or anxiety or whatever it is that you're struggling with.
Yeah.
I think that's a setup. So you mentioned it, you've been on this journey.
Right.
But so talk about maybe just a little bit more of what you've discovered from being on that journey.
Well, being on that journey too, I'm a man of faith. So I've grown up in church. I've grown up, being a Christian, a follower of Jesus for 30 plus years. But that you mature as you grow, you should, hopefully. But I noticed, for me, looking back, like, I think, not that it's taught wrong, but when it comes to being healed from anything, when you don't get what you think the healing's going to be, you don't think you got healed. You know what I'm saying? So this whole idea of, wanting to get healed or going through the process and getting prayer for mental health, and you don't see the changes, it doesn't mean stuff's not changing. It just healing doesn't, it's not always what we think it is, So I've had to come to terms with that, because I've been prayed over, and gone up altar calls many times for prayer for the mental health healing. And I'm not saying I haven't been helped in moments, you know what I mean?
Sure.
But you realize that it's a never ending journey, and I would love to just be instantly freed from it. But for some reason I'm not, and I don't complain about that, because I look at it as it is part of my story. Yeah. It does give me an outlet to help others. Mm-hmm. And I'm basically learning how to change my perspective on how I look at mental health. Yeah. Instead of it being this, yes, it's not fun. Yes, it's a terrible thing, but I think people struggle with it more than we think. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So it's almost like a norm, and this whole, like, what's the word? Not taboo, but what's kind of like, it's been a secret thing, especially like in church circles. It's not talked about a lot, or it's like, oh, there's, shame, almost like shame on you. I'm not saying anyone shamed me, but it's just a weird topic when it comes to mental health. But I think over the past several years, we've gotten so much better as a whole of being able to talk about these things and not shame people or put people in different categories because of a mental health issue.
Yeah. And I think, again, another reason why, I'm starting this podcast is to talk about those, for guys, to make it more normalized for guys to talk about the things that weigh them down, and to say, hey, it is okay. Like, we have, we were talking earlier, we both have struggled with depression pretty much our whole life. Yep. But I think for me, I'm at a point in my life where it's just like, that's okay. Yeah. Like, it's okay. Yep. And to be able to say out loud that, yes, I've struggled with depression throughout my life, and it's okay, but to have some tools and some guys to lean on, going back to the military experience, I think that's why I want guys that have had that experience with the camaraderie to say, listen, we're only as strong as the weakest link, and that link changes, right? Yeah. It doesn't stick with just one person. No. So to be able to say out loud, this is what I'm struggling with. I'm not looking for a pity party. I'm actually just looking for somebody to lean on for a little while until I can get past whatever. And I think, when you can do that, it takes this weight off of you that you really can't describe unless you really raise your hand and say, yes, this is what's going on with me.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's something I really enjoyed over the summer, our friendship, because there's been many weeks where, like, for a while there, we were meeting on Thursdays,
Yeah.
you and I, and we did that for like maybe a month. And this life gets in the way, and it's
Sure.
all good, but you don't know how relieving it was for us to talk.
Yeah.
Either one of us like would be struggling with something, but when we would share that, the next couple of days for both of us, I know would be like, man, I got this. I'm not alone,
Right.
And you're right, that weight gets taken off your back. Just a lot of times when you can just talk about things, when you just have someone that you can talk to, judgment free, and not trying to tell you, well, this is what you need to do, or do this, this, and this.
Yeah.
That's not what most guys need to hear. They just need someone that they can talk to and open up to. you know?
Yeah, just going back to that healthy masculinity, which we were
Yeah.
kind of talking about. It's okay to say out loud, "I'm struggling."
Yep.
And a lot of times that's all it takes.
Yeah, man.
Or having somebody to remind you, "Hey, Joshua, you told me that you were gonna pick up the phone and call me,
Yeah.
and now I'm calling you, and it's been 3 weeks since
weeks, yeah.
we've talked, and
Yeah.
you've been struggling." You
Yeah.
know, so let's not do that again, kind
No,
of situation.
absolutely.
And vice versa.
Right.
Again, it's not like I want to create an environment for guys that there's not really a, a hierarchy,
Right.
but it's just like, hey, we're all even
All
in
this
this.
together, yeah.
We're all in this together. We're all trying to figure this thing out together. Again, there's no end destination. We're just trying to keep everybody on the same path.
Yeah.
So, we'll talk about the other things for you that's really been helpful that maybe somebody that's listening could gain some insight from.
Other things that's been helpful for me during my journey through mental health is for one, working out is a great outlet.
Yeah.
Because there's all kinds of studies that show how the endorphins that are released when you work out, and dopamine and those things.
Yeah.
So working out is a very big aspect to my mental health, because if I didn't have working out, I think I would go absolutely nuts. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
right.
So working out has definitely been part of that. Nutrition also plays a big part into. I think it can affect your mental health. When you start cleaning up your diet and eating, whole foods, you feel better.
Yeah.
And it can affect your mind a lot. Another thing, I've gotten into acting over this past year. And so I haven't done much. I've done some, short films here and there. But I've been in a process with my acting mentor of discovering, the whole craft of acting. And it's been a year-long journey. So I've been in this mentorship with my coach for over almost a year now. And we've met every week, every Monday for we're going on 11 months now.
Yeah.
And it's been very helpful, because the first half of, to truly become a great actor, or to understand acting and to become an actor or actress, you have to learn that you have to be present, that it's all about being yourself.
Yeah.
So no matter what script or character you're playing, it's you being that character,
Yeah.
so you're not trying to act like a fireman. You're going to be Joshua, who's a fireman.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but it's been really interesting, because, the whole concept of learning to accept life for what is, that's mind blowing. That's something I still forget about a lot, but that's one thing I'm working on, is learning to be more mindful of just being present. Not be stuck in the past. Because what do we talk about?
Yeah, if you're stuck in the past, you're depressed.
Depressed.
If you're looking too far in the future, you can almost guarantee you're going to be anxious.
So it's a no-brainer to start getting, to learn to find yourself present in the moment, in today, focusing on today, not 10 minutes from now, literally moment by moment. And I think, I do think all of our minds are in a place where we can be reprogrammed, and I guess renewing our minds, but it's a process, and you have to put in the work. There's no way around that.
Right. And I love how you said, if you're going to be a good actor, you just need to be yourself, not try to be someone else.
Right.
And I think, that's with people in general, but we're talking about men specifically for what we're dealing with. And that's really something that I'm passionate about, is empowering whoever's sitting across from me. If I'm working with them, hey, let's just figure out who you are without trying to be anybody else. And let's figure that out, and help you be the best version of yourself.
Absolutely.
And I think that's difficult for a lot of people, especially in the world we live with social media
Mhm.
and the comparison. You know, we kind of hit on that when you were talking about you really didn't start comparing yourself until
Yeah, until after I turned 30
yeah,
and social media really started, getting up there with Instagram and Facebook. And then you start, it's so easy to get on there and just scroll,
yeah,
but what that does to your brain and your subconscious, it's
it's
not good,
yeah,
you know?
right,
And so there's days or weeks at a time right now I'm doing a little social media fast because like with me focusing on acting and other things, especially even with in vivo, like I don't need to look at what anyone else is doing.
yeah,
I got enough to focus on. And if I'm really wanting to, you know, I say take names and kick ass,
yeah.
I have no time to see all this other stuff going on around me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it doesn't really matter, and I always tell people, "Listen, you think people care about about what you're doing, but they
Yeah, they
don't.
don't.
They really
They
don't.
don't.
So be where your feet are planted.
Yes, absolutely.
Get off your phone and stop the doom scrolling. And I'm
Yeah.
guilty of it too, man.
Yeah.
I am actively working on not spending so much daggum time on my phone. Obviously, with running this campaign, or in the beginning stages of it, I've got to do some social
Well, of
media
course. Yeah.
stuff, but I like, Joe Rogan said he likes to post and ghost.
Post and ghost. That's
Yeah.
that's how you that's how
Yeah,
you do it.
absolutely. So, put yourself out there,
Yeah.
whatever you're trying to do. But don't compare yourself because that is just a recipe for disaster. And
All the
if
time.
you've got a tendency towards depression and anxiety, spending lots of time online is a setup for a disaster,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. That's what I'm all for. Like I recently created my own or started a new professional page on
Okay.
Instagram, but I haven't touched it yet. But
Yeah.
that'll be for acting and any modeling or anything that I do. But
Yeah.
I'm also looking for like someone to do it for me because I'm like, if someone can do the content, I don't mind, posting like that. But I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't have it in me because every time I've tried to start like doing like being a fitness influencer and all that stuff, I'm just like,
Yeah.
why the hell am I doing this?
Yeah.
Does it really matter?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I just, I've
Yeah.
tried to go at this, I don't know, 5 different times.
Hmm.
But it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of times if we try to force something, it just seems
Yeah.
forced. And if you can just, again, kind of go back to what we were talking about, just be Joshua,
Yeah.
and stand firm in that, usually the rest of everything comes together.
Yep.
It's kind of like, what's the thing that says, we have plans. We think we have plans, but God's got different idea for what
Yeah.
our plans are.
Yep.
And the biggest thing is just to, I tell people the biggest thing is to not set idle and to keep stepping
Right. Keep
forward.
moving.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then God can handle the rest. I wanted to talk a little bit about your friend Jeremy that passed away.
Hmm.
I lost my brother back in 2021, so 2 years ago. He actually took his own life. And I know Jeremy had an overdose. Right?
Yeah.
Is that what happened?
Yep.
But talk just a little bit about that because I think it's so important for guys to open up about those experiences for anybody that might be listening that's in that spot.
Yeah. Well, probably gonna shed some tears doing this, but yeah, man, Jeremy, he was, if you wanted anyone to be there, if you got in a fight, in a bar or anything, you would want Jeremy there.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying we went around getting in fights, but just
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell a funny story. There was one time we were at a bar out in Southern California,
Yeah.
and I was well, I was at a table with my friends, and this table actually set into the dance floor, and so we're all hanging out, and Jeremy's way on the other side of the bar, like talking to a girl or whatnot. And these girls came and sat with us, and there was a guy that was harassing this girl, like he wanted to buy her a drink or wanted her to dance, and she's like, "Hey, can you tell this guy to leave me alone?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And so I was like, "Hey, bro, she didn't want to dance. She's good." And this guy just starts yelling at me and screaming and going off on that. He served and he's in the army and blah 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 Marines.
Yeah.
And I stood up to him, but before I could even do anything, one of my friends just comes with the right hook and knocks the dude out. Well, somehow I get pushed on the dance floor because like the music stops. You could hear like the DJ it's almost like the scratch on the record. It sounded like that.
Right.
It was just complete chaos. And somehow I get pushed on the middle of the dance floor. And this dude, like he had to be on like all kinds of drugs, but he puts me in a full Nelson. So I'm hemmed up. I can't move. And I'm like, oh shit, what's about to happen to me? And I look over and I see Jeremy on the other side of this half wall and he sees me. And so Jeremy's like 6'4", big old country fed, he's just a great dude. He comes over there. The guy sees Jeremy. He literally looks at me. He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, man." He dusts me off.
Yeah.
And then everything stopped. But that's just who Jeremy was. So anytime we went out, man, I was always we were always just partying and have a good time. I was, Mr. Dancer, take my shirt off. And Jeremy was always kept us out for me in case I got into, because people always wanted to fight me. I never, ever wanted to fight anybody. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But just a little bit about Jeremy. But he was a great corpsman, a great man. I spent, after we went, before we went to Iraq, we came home on pre-deployment leave in December of 2005, but I spent like a couple of days with him and his mom, and she cooked for us, and I got to be around like friends that he grew up with, and so we just bonded. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so then we went through Iraq together. He was the senior line corpsman for Alpha Company, so I was with Second Platoon, so he was over all the other. But we were bros. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And after Iraq, I got out. He stayed in for another 5 or 6 years. And so we would talk here and there, but then life happens and you drift away. And then I went to California in 2013 and with my wife for an anniversary trip, and we had dinner with him, and it was great to catch up and just tell stories and laugh like we used to. And fast forward to 2018, we had been talking about, he was planning our the first Alpha Company reunion. We were going to do it in Arkansas. Yeah. And he had gotten into a boating accident where him and his best friend, they were fishing. The engine caught on fire, caught them on fire. And I think he saved his buddy by jumping on him, but he got like 3rd-degree burns on a lot of his body. Mm-hmm. And I think he, I guess got on pain meds. And, we talked here and there. And what's funny is it's not funny, but I still have my last text with him, and every once in a while I'll go back and look at it just because, I love him and stuff. Sure. That's normal, I think. Yeah. But yeah, he passed away like the end of October, 2018. And man, when that happened, like, I've lost, like I've known people who've passed away, but when that happened, it turned my whole world upside down. I had gotten fired from my job 2 weeks before. Yeah. And I was actually supposed to go compete. So I was like in contest shape. I was supposed to go to St. Louis to compete in a show. And it was probably the best look that I had to that date. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But mentally I was done, and so went to his funeral. Was one of the pallbearers. We went to, what was cool too, that was like the first time I got together with all of the group of Marines. And it sucks that we had to bond over that, but that is also a good thing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So there was probably 15 of us, maybe 20 from Alpha Company that showed up for his funeral. Mm-hmm. And, when we did the memorial, people were getting up to speak. Afterwards, his cousin came to the group of Marines, and we were all sitting there, and of course, I've never cried that hard in my life, and just a mess. But he was like, "Hey, just thanking all of us for being there before we went out to the gravesite." But he's like, "Which one of y'all's Doc Aubrey?" And I raised my hand, and he just busted out crying. He's like, "You don't know how much Jeremy talked about you." Yeah. And he said he loved you so much, but he told stories about you all the time, more so than anyone else that he talked about. And when he told me that, dude, I lost it, because there's a part that you have that bond, but then when you don't see each other, it was super, it was so honorable, or so honoring that he thought about me that much,
Yeah.
but I'll never forget that because I just, I knew we had that friendship, but to know that when I wasn't even there, you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
would tell stories about me and all that, it touched my heart. But man, from that moment, um, my mental health just went, like all those memories from the military, I mean, just rushed back. You know what I'm saying? So like, and they were good. They weren't bad memories. Other than stuff in Iraq. So it's a mixture of everything. But like,
Sure.
it just seemed like a wave of emotion of every memory from that era came back.
Yeah.
And man, yeah, losing him it was hard because he's the least like that type of person. You're like, not Jeremy, not Eads. He's the man's man. He's a good old country boy.
Yeah.
You know, um, and he loved life. He loved hunting. He had kids too. I mean, he was a good son, super funny. But yeah, man, I mean, I miss him, and it just sucks whenever, like, because there's part of you to think like, man, what could I what could I have done to help him out? Because we never talked about this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I brought it up is, I've got a similar story with my brother, I mean, it's funny because he was definitely a man's man. And if you were going to get in a fight, he was the guy that you would have with him.
Yeah.
And so I just, I really wanted to bring that up because, we both have that bond because that my brother was my best friend.
Yeah.
And he's not here with me anymore and there's just not coming back, just like Jeremy, he's not coming back. But what we can do and what I'm passionate about doing is taking those experiences
Mhm.
and moving forward and
Yeah.
helping other guys. And I know
Absolutely.
for sure if Chad was here, that's my brother. And if Jeremy were here, and I do believe they are still with us.
Yeah.
They would want us to continue on this mission
Yeah,
and
carry
help
on.
more people in their honor,
Yeah.
So, uh, with that, talk about your passion for wanting to coach other guys.
Yeah. So this is like getting into this is kind of a no brainer for me because I've always had a thing where I connect with people left and right. You know what I'm saying? I make new friends every time I go into a new gym. Like I'll strike up a conversation. Not that I'm trying to be Mr. Social, but people come to me,
Yeah.
or I'll go say something to someone. But I make friends easily. But I end up making these friendships where I end up mentoring people. If I really think about it,
Yeah.
mentoring them with their workouts, and then it turns into live stuff.
Right.
So I'm kind of like I was probably built for this. You know what I mean? And so thinking about it, I'm like, I've lived a lot of life. And I just know that, being able to create that bond with other men and get them to be vulnerable and help others out, that's something that it's more valuable than money to me. You know what I mean? And I really want to be a part of people's journeys and success to be one day when they look back to be like, man, I remember when I met Joshua Aubrey, that was the moment that my life took a turn for the better. You know what I'm saying?
Totally. Yeah. And that's why, I wanted to have you on the podcast, and have you be a part of the initial wave of the coaching that we do because you have so much life experience, and some of it's, horrible stuff. Right. And some of it's your struggles, but I firmly believe, some people look at it and they're like, well, I'm not completely where I'm supposed to be yet. So I can't be coaching anybody. And I think it's the complete opposite,
Yes,
right?
I agree.
We all have challenges. And like what we talked about before, just because you have something doesn't mean that is a bad thing. It actually, is, I think it's a benefit
Right.
to help you step in and walk with guys who are struggling, and the key thing is to say, hey, I'm not gonna, I might have this depression or I might have this anxiety or whatever it may be you're struggling with, but that does not disqualify you it actually gives you a leg up on somebody who's never experienced that before. And
Right.
when you're sitting across from somebody that's been where you've been,
Hmm.
and everybody's got the common journey of wanting to say, "Hey, I'm not going to sit in this stuff. I'm actually going to keep moving forward." I think that's, invaluable. And it's, I just want to encourage you that you are a great coach. And it's an honor to have you be a part of the In Vivo project.
Yeah, man, I'm super excited about it. And, just thank you for pulling me along throughout these years.
Yeah.
Cause that's what's cool about our friendship is like, I think throughout the years, we've hung on to each other. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And there for a season there, we didn't talk to each other for maybe a year,
Yeah.
but then we've done this many times where we always come back to each other.
Yeah.
And it's friendships like that when you start seeing how like you keep going, not going back to, there's something that keeps drawing you together.
Yeah.
There's something special there, and you want to capitalize on that. Not for, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's just a common thing there. And that's what I honor about you, because like I keep telling you, I've told you this many times the past several weeks, like, bro, thanks for like hanging on to me
Yeah.
and believing in me and not giving up on me. Cause I think sometimes that's what happens to us. People give up on us or lose belief or hope in us because of whatever we're struggling with. They just can't, either they're not at a place where they can be vulnerable and they don't get it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But
Yeah.
I honor you as well,
Yeah.
brother. So
Yeah.
I love what you're doing, and
Thanks,
I'm
man.
glad to be
Yeah.
on this journey too, man.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we hope to definitely have you back
Absolutely.
for some more episodes. And so anybody out there listening, that maybe this podcast has resonated with what Joshua was talking about, feel free to reach out to us at the In Vivo Project. We're on all social media. You can also reach out to me at Eric_Payton. And where can they find you at on social media?
Yes,
You'll get back to
I'll
him.
get back
He'll
to
get
you on the
back
next
to
one.
you.
On the
Well,
next episode,
yeah.
we'll know where you can
Yeah.
find me.
In the meantime, you can reach out to the In Vivo Project. And if you
Absolutely.
like what Josh said and you said, "Hey, I want to work with this guy," we'll get you in contact with him. So, thanks, bro.
You're welcome. Thank
All
you.
right, man.
All right.